Statistically speaking, spoiler talk videos don't do very well on this channel, so I'm doing this one more for me. Hello everyone, welcome to Rewind Reviews and thank you for joining me in this spoiler talk of Deadpool and Wolverine. I am so sorry it's taken so long. Following on from what I said in my spoiler-free video which I released back in August for this movie, there was a lot about this movie and a lot of things that were included that I wasn't able to talk about because obviously it went into spoiler territory. But there was a load of stuff that I was really excited about and I really wanted to talk about and discuss, so that's what this video is intended to be. So what it is that I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be expanding on a few things that I couldn't really talk about in my spoiler-free video. I'm going to be addressing cameos, costumes, multiverse shenanigans, all that kind of stuff, behind the scenes things. And I'm also going to lightly touch upon the future of the MCU as well. So let's begin. So let's get the first question out the way. How does Deadpool and Wolverine handle the events of Logan? Honestly, pretty well. In my opinion, I think it handles it really well. Albeit in a very Deadpool way. It does stay true to the promise that they made during that announcement video where they announced that Hugh Jackman was coming back as Wolverine. They don't resurrect Logan, they don't bring back that version of the character. The version of Wolverine that is in this movie is a completely different version altogether. It is a different variant of the character. But I definitely was not expecting what they actually do in this. The opening sequence of this movie is Deadpool going to Logan's grave, digging him up, the TVA shows up, and this mad action scene, this mad fight scene breaks out. It's glorious when he starts using Wolverine's adamantium skeleton as weapons to take down all the TVA agents. And the entire action sequence is set to NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye, which you've probably seen all over the internet by now on Twitter and TikTok and all sorts. That song has definitely gained a lot of popularity since this movie released, and there's a good reason for it. It's a really fun, lively action sequence that really helps set the tone and mood of the entire movie that it is that you're about to see. And you've also got Deadpool dancing along to it as well, and it's just so good. I know it is a dance performer, it's not actually Ryan Reynolds doing the dances, unfortunately, but it is a great sequence overall and I really enjoyed it. And following on from what I said in my spoiler-free video, it does pay off a little joke from X-Men 2 where Pyro actually puts the song on during the sequence where they're all in Cyclops' car. Plus, there is actually a little gag at the end of the music video that Celine Dion made for Deadpool 2, where Deadpool does audibly say, "I knew I should have booked NSYNC." Whether that's the reason for it, I don't know, but it is a funny payoff. It is a phenomenal opening sequence. It is so much fun. It is bloody, it is gory, it is violent. It's so entertaining and it is so enjoyable. But I guarantee there are going to be a load of people who absolutely hate the idea of it. Now, I did say in my spoiler-free video that there was one aspect of this intro that did annoy me, and I'm going to say what that is now. When I said to myself that I was going to do a video for Deadpool and Wolverine and actually release it on the channel, one thing that I did want to do was a proper intro, a proper skit to introduce the video and the movie. And what I had planned in that intro is based off of a meme that has been around for years, and even How It Should Have Ended has actually done a little parody of it as well. And what I was planning on doing was getting a Deadpool costume and actually dressing up as the character, going into a forest and pretending that it is the resting place of Logan and digging him up. It was going to start off with the final shot from Logan, and then it's going to see me drifting into shots with the Deadpool costume. He's got a little rose with him, he puts it on the ground, paying his respects, and then he turns to the camera and he says, "Now I know what you're thinking. Do I really want to defile this grave just for some Disney money? Of course I do. Swing shovel into frame." I'll even have the little voiceovers as well, all the voices that Deadpool normally hears in his head whenever he breaks the fourth wall. In the comics, there's always like two little like dialogue panels of like these two different voices going on in his head, and I was going to introduce both of them in this little skit, and both of them sort of like either egging him on or trying to stop him and turn him away. And then eventually Deadpool wins out and he goes, "Okay, you big ape, it's time to wake up," and then shovel doomph into screen, cut to black. So when I saw how this movie opened and I actually saw that they actually were doing that scene, it did annoy me because I was thinking, I'm kind of glad that I didn't do the intro now because I basically would have actually spoiled how the movie opens. But at the same time, I would like to do that video because it was a fun idea. I had all the shots, all the script pretty much all worked out for it. The only thing I didn't have was the shovel and the costume. I really would like to do it, and honestly, if you guys would like to see me actually do that video, let me know down in the comments and I'll try and do it. I may have to wait until it starts getting a little bit warmer over here because it's starting to come into winter time now and it's getting absolutely horrible over here. So that's the one thing about the intro that annoyed me. So coming back to Wolverine and what it is that they do with his story in this movie, this variant of Wolverine, what it is that they do with him, I really love the idea of it. I know it has changed a lot. I know there was things that they did rewrite. I don't know because obviously the Kang dynasty isn't happening anymore. It's now switched to Doomsday, so there's potentially some rewrites because of that. But what it is that they have done in this, I really do appreciate, and it does give Hugh Jackman a chance to really flex his acting abilities. Basically what happens with this version of Wolverine is he is kind of the reluctant member of the X-Men, so it kind of feels a bit more like the comic book Wolverine, where essentially he's just kind of like, he's part of the team, but he doesn't really want to be a part of it. And obviously he's got the costume and Scott keeps forcing him to wear it whenever they do team-ups. Then one day he decides to go out drinking, he gets absolutely hammered, and then humans attack the X-Mansion and they leave the entire X-Men team dead. And of course Wolverine, as soon as he gets back, goes full berserker mode and just massacres anyone that got in his way, and he essentially turns the entire world against the X-Men. I genuinely love the idea of this because it really does add a lot of gravitas to this version of the character, and that's basically why it is that he wears the suit. It's meant to be a reminder of what he did, and then over the course of the movie he learns to be a better person to the point where he feels like he has actually earned the suit and to be called the X-Man. It's such a powerful story and Hugh Jackman is absolutely flawless in this film. But the real question about the costume is, does Wolverine finally don his classic cowl? Yes, he does. During the finale of this movie, there is a gigantic action set piece where Deadpool and Wolverine team up to fight off the Deadpool Corps. And of course, both of them step out in that iconic shot from all the trailers. Deadpool standing there with his gold pistols. Then Wolverine reaches up and you think, oh, he's just going to pop his claws again. Next thing you know, he reaches back. Wait, is he? Is he? And then he pulls the cowl over and it just, oh my God. It's such a huge moment. And even here in the UK, we're not the most vocal people when it comes to stuff that we see in the cinema. Not like what we've seen, like all the audience reaction things I've seen on YouTube. Like we're very subdued compared to stuff like that. That is one of the few times that I have audibly heard people actually gasp and cheer. And quite rightly so. It is a really big deal because this is such a huge moment. It's over 24 years in the making and it was such an amazing payoff. And it looks amazing. It's such a hard thing to get right. It's such a strange design, but they really made it work and I love how it looks. And I also appreciate that they don't just have him wear it just because like he's deflecting Cassandra Nova's psychic attacks, which is like one of the biggest theories of why he was going to wear it in the first place. It is just a cowl, it's just a hood, it's just a part of the costume. And it's not nanotech either. It genuinely looks great and I was kind of wondering what it is they were going to do with his eyes, whether they were going to have just like open holes so you can see Hugh Jackman's eyes inside it, or if they were going to do the same thing that they do with Deadpool. They do the exact same thing they do with Deadpool, where the way that it's all like black around his eyes and all the eyes themselves are white, but they move and contort and contract whenever he actually expresses himself. And it doesn't look out of place either, and I really loved how it looked overall. It has made me wonder what it is that they're going to be doing with Batman in the future in the DC universe. I'm hoping that like Brave and the Bold is one of the upcoming Batman movies. I'm hoping that this actually inspires them to actually try and give that a go, because Batman is known for the white eyes under the cowl, so I hope that this inspires them to at least give that a go. Honestly, I'm so happy with how it looked overall. Obviously, there is a little bit of me that still would have liked him to have kept the shoulder pads because that is the classic Wolverine look, but I can't complain over the costume. They have absolutely brought it to life beautifully. It is one of my favourite MCU costumes so far. It was such an amazing sequence overall as well, just seeing him in that costume and Deadpool alongside him just tearing through the Deadpool Corps. I had this massive smile on my face throughout the entire time. If you've seen Hugh Jackman's reaction to it, where I think he was on a train or a plane going somewhere and he's got the phone in front of him and he's just sitting there and he's cackling away to himself and this massive beaming smile on his face is just that is a pretty accurate summary of how the audience felt. I genuinely loved it and it made me so happy. Oh, I'm geeking out over just a costume. Right, cameos. Back when they announced that Wolverine was going to be a variant in this movie, naturally everyone assumed that the movie was going to be a multiverse oriented story, and of course those rumours were officially confirmed to be true. The rumour mill went into absolute overdrive and everyone was expecting the entire world to show up in it, just like they did with Multiverse of Madness. It's really frustrating when that happens because the same thing's happening now with Secret Wars. Everyone's predicting all sorts of people may be showing up in it at some point in time. It does get really irritating to the point where some people will literally judge how good a movie is purely based on how many of these rumours and cameos and everything were actually true. The biggest ones that I remember people speculating about making appearances in this movie was Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. There was also a lot of rumours about Andrew Garfield potentially showing up as his version of Spider-Man. There was also some rumours about Eric Banner being the Hulk in this. There was rumours that Daniel Radcliffe was going to be playing a variant of Wolverine called Patch. No, that's played by Hugh Jackman as well. Still don't really understand where that one came from. I'll be honest, there was a little part of me that did wonder if we were going to see characters from either Legion or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Plus there was a load of set leaks and set pictures supposedly coming out as well, and it turns out that most of this stuff was actually fake, and these included, and I got shared some of these as well, and I was genuinely getting annoyed because I kept getting sent all this stuff and I'm saying, like, I really hope that none of this is true, stop sending me it. There were pictures of Cyclops in his classic blue and yellow suit. There was set pictures, fake set pictures of Michael Chilkis as the Thing, which I'm actually kind of disappointed about because I really would have loved to have seen him in this movie. There was even one that really made me laugh, where there was a picture of Hugh Jackman in his yellow and blue suit, Ryan Reynolds standing next to him, his Deadpool, all the camera crew and Sean Levy and everyone standing around beside them. And right next to them is the Predator, 20th Century Fox. It makes sense, but it looked fake. I knew it was fake, and it was quite a funny one. But of course, just like Multiverse of Madness, none of these rumours turned out to be true. A lot of it was just made up, and lots of it was just rumours and speculation. Especially the Spider-Man ones, because I'm really baffled how many people aren't aware that Sony Pictures will not allow Spider-Man to be in anything else other than anything they've signed a deal for. But that's not to say that this movie doesn't have a lot of surprises and a lot of cameos that some people are definitely not expecting. Let's count them down. Now, first things first, obviously there's no official Avenger cameos actually in this movie. I mean, you do see some Avengers here and there. You see some clips of Captain America. You see an edited version of Thor where he's kind of like cradling Deadpool, supposedly, probably towards the end of Secret Wars or something like that. I don't actually know if it's going to factor into the story or not. I think it's just going to be like a fun little throwaway gag, but that's the extent of the Chris Hemsworth sort of cameo-esque appearance in this movie. Plus, you do see a very brief glimpse of the Hulk. There was a lot of rumours and speculation about Loki potentially factoring into this in some way, maybe appearing somewhere along the line. Unfortunately, that's not true, but this movie does at least acknowledge what does happen in the Loki TV series, and B-15 from that show does make an appearance, and it was nice seeing her. It does acknowledge where this does fit within the overall timeline of the MCU and where it is that the multiverse saga is going, but outside of that, it doesn't really connect to Loki that much. That being said, we do at least get one cameo from an Avengers-related character, and that's Happy Hogan, played by Jon Favreau. It's actually quite a nice, fun little scene where they have a bit of a back and forth about Deadpool wanting to join the Avengers and what the Avengers mean to people, and there's a really nice nod to some of the earlier MCU movies as well. You see the arc reactor that Tony had in his first appearance. You see the kind of prototype shield that Captain America used to have that only appears in the Iron Man movies. And there's even a shot of a photograph that Happy has on his mantelpiece of Tony Stark with Tom Holland's Peter Parker next to him. It's the exact same picture that Tony Stark has in Endgame. Thing is, either because of the spell that Peter cast, and that's the reason why he's covered up in this picture, or because Sony don't want Tom Holland showing up in it, I don't really know. But Tom Holland is actually concealed by an Iron Man helmet, and it's the exact same Iron Man helmet. It's a plastic one that was featured in Iron Man 2. There's a little kid that appeared in that movie that Iron Man actually saved from one of the Hammer drones. Years later, when Spider-Man was officially introduced into the MCU, there was a fan theory going around and speculation that that little kid would be Peter Parker, and that was officially confirmed. So this is the first actual in-universe confirmation of that. I thought that was awesome. Let's move on. Obviously, this movie being a multiverse movie and Deadpool having access to one of the TVA's devices that allows him to travel between universes and timelines, there is a ton of variants of Wolverine and Deadpool that appear throughout this. There's a lot more Deadpool variants that appear throughout this movie compared to Wolverine, but honestly, the amount of them and what it is that they get up to and who it is who plays them as well is so fun. One of the big ones being Lady Deadpool, who is rumoured for a long time to be played by Blake Lively, who's Ryan Reynolds' wife. Those rumours were 100% true, and yes, she does play the character. As far as I'm aware, she doesn't actually play the actual physical character, she only voices her. All the other Deadpool variants, I believe, are just played by stunt performers. Apart from one, and that's a variant called Welshpool, played by Wrexham AFC's Paul Mullin. He's basically just Deadpool with a Welsh flag on his chest. But it isn't just Blake Lively that gets involved in this movie, no, the entire family does too. Baby Pool and Kid Pool both make appearances in this, and they are both played by both Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's kids. There was some rumours that Walker Scobell, who most people will know as Percy Jackson, the new Percy Jackson, that he was going to be playing Kid Pool, and apparently they did actually want him to appear, and they did want him to play Kid Pool. The only catch is, he was a bit too old, which is a bit of a shame because I know how big of a fan he is of Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds in general, so it is a shame that they didn't try and factor him into this in some way because I think that he could have been really fun. One voice that I did not catch at all was the voice of Headpool, and that was Nathan Fillion. I had absolutely no idea that was him whatsoever. It sounds nothing like him, but it was such a fun surprise. I did at one point in time think that Headpool was actually going to be the severed head of the Deadpool variants that appeared in X-Men Origins, the one that appears in the end of the credits. As far as I'm aware, that's not true, but that would have been a fun little connection. I am genuinely amazed that they don't make any X-Men Origin jokes in this entire film, or Green Lantern either. I did, however, catch on to Matthew McConaughey playing Cowboy Deadpool. That was a fun surprise. I also spotted a Deadpool variant when they're all coming through the portal of one that is dressed up in the P.T. Barnum costume that Hugh Jackman wore in The Greatest Showman. The Greatest Showpool! And obviously the variants that featured quite prominently in a lot of the marketing, and that's Dogpool. She doesn't factor into the story whatsoever, she just kind of appears a few times here and then. Of course, Deadpool actually does take her back to his universe at the end of the film. But outside of that, that's really it. She's just kind of like one of the more fun variants. But by far the most entertaining variant out of all the different Deadpools that appear throughout this is easily Nice Pool, played by Ryan Reynolds himself. I love that he's credited as Gordon Reynolds, who's supposed to be Ryan Reynolds' twin brother, who only really appeared in, I think, the GQ interviews that they did a little while ago for Sexiest Man of the Year. He is so funny, and I love the back and forth between him and the normal Deadpool. And he easily has one of the funniest fourth wall breaks in the entire film. That's a bit where Deadpool calls Nice Pool Van Milder. That's a reference to an early Ryan Reynolds movie. And Nice Pool laughs and he goes, "Oh, I can gently tap the fourth wall too." And then he turns to the camera and he just goes, "The proposal." And then turns back. Oh, that was perfect. I did say in a spoiler-free video that you will have a good time with this, and that is one of the reasons. You know, and how they actually factor into the story, I will admit, it is... they don't really do that much overall. I mean, Cassandra Nova basically just brings them all to basically stop Deadpool and Wolverine from stopping her from actually unravelling what goes on in the multiverse. And that's the only contribution that they have to the entire story. They don't factor into the story whatsoever apart from Nice Pool and Dogpool, and that's it. But I'm not going to deny that it wasn't a fun sequence overall. It is an amazing action sequence overall, and I love seeing all these different Deadpools all appearing. And I did find it funny that the actual payoff and the culmination of that fight is Peter shows up in his own Deadpool costume. He calls himself Peter Pool, and it turns out that every Deadpool has a version of Peter and they all absolutely love him, and that's how the fight ends. But yeah, I do think that the Deadpool core could have factored into the overall story in some other capacity, so it is a little bit disappointing how much they actually do factor into this overall, but it is a fun scene. There was a little bit of me that did wonder if the Deadpool core were going to be the main villains of this movie and they were going to be the big threat of the multiverse, and they were basically going to be doing a spin on Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe with all these different variants. Because there were rumours quite early on when this movie was in development that they were going to be doing some sort of adaptation of that. Obviously that isn't the case, but it would have been curious to see how that turned out. Anyway, but when it comes to Wolverine, pretty much every single variant apart from one is played by Hugh Jackman, including a comic accurate short and furry version of Wolverine. There's several different alternate future versions of Wolverine, including the one which I'm not sure which comic it's from, but I do recognise the cover of Wolverine being strung up with the gigantic yellow X. Plus there's even a true comic accurate version of Old Man Logan, which made me so happy to see. There's even one variant that I know has made a lot of people very happy, and that's a version of Wolverine wearing his classic brown and orange suit, and it looked amazing when he showed up in it. Obviously he's not wearing a cowl because they want to save that for later on in the movie, but I genuinely loved that little shot when he actually steps out in the costume. It looked amazing on screen. Oh, and he's also fighting the Hulk. Unfortunately, we don't actually get to see the fight, but it is a fun sequence, and I love how they recreate that iconic cover of Hulk being reflected in Wolverine's claws. That was a nice touch. I will be completely honest, there was a little bit of me that did expect during this sequence where you do see all these different Wolverine variants, that I did honestly expect Deadpool to drop in on Hugh Jackman as P.T. Barnum. Before the movie release, they did unveil the entire track listing for all the songs that were going to factor into this movie, and one of them was The Greatest Show from The Greatest Showman. So when I saw that song was listed in the track listing, I genuinely thought that P.T. Barnum, Hugh Jackman's P.T. Barnum, was going to show up in some capacity in this, and I thought that this sequence was probably the most likely place that he was going to appear. Because don't forget, The Greatest Showman was a 20th Century Fox movie. 20th Century Fox is now owned by Disney. Disney now call it 20th Century Studios. So it could have happened. Oh well. But the biggest surprise, one of the few moments that my audience audibly gasped, was Deadpool dropping in on a Wolverine variant. And that variant turns around, and it's a variant called the Cavalream, aka Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill appearing in this movie had been rumoured for a very long time, but I thought there's absolutely no way that that will happen. So yeah, that was a huge surprise for me. And I did appreciate the little jab that they throw at DC, where they basically say that they're going to treat Henry Cavill so much better than those guys down the street. That was a fun scene, and I will admit he did actually look pretty good in all the hair. I do hope that Henry Cavill does stick around in the MCU. I do agree with Deadpool's statements that they are probably going to treat him a lot better than DC did. I don't think that he should be Wolverine. I don't think that he should be the MCU 616 Wolverine. I could see him as Captain Britain. That has been a popular theory for a long time. But there are other characters that I do think that he could play quite well. So I would like to see him come back one day in the future. So we'll see what happens. Most of the other cameos are made up of members of the Brotherhood of Mutants. And they're all working with Cassandra Nova within the Void. And most of them we did know would be in the movie, and that's purely based on the marketing. But none of them outside of Pyro or Sabretooth are played by the original actors, like the Last Stand version of Juggernaut, Deathstrike, Azazel, Toad, Psylocke, and even Bullseye from Daredevil, and the Russian from The Punisher. There was also a load of rumours circulating around that Doctor Doom was going to be making an appearance in this, with a load of people saying that, oh, they've spotted him in the trailer, even though that's not him and it looks nothing like him. Doctor Doom does not appear in this movie whatsoever, and neither does Mobius, played by Owen Wilson from Loki, who is also heavily speculated to be appearing in this movie. But when I saw that the Russian was in this movie, there was a little bit of me that did wonder if we were potentially going to see Thomas Jane reprising his role as the Punisher. Unfortunately, no, but he does get a shout out in this movie, and they do use his weapons as well. Honestly, I think that if they had asked him to be in this movie, he would have gladly accepted, because he genuinely does love and care about the character, to the point where he made his own fan film starring Ron Perlman, and it's awesome. It's called Dirty Laundry. It's on YouTube. Go and look for it. It's brilliant. But I'm not too disappointed about the Punisher not being in this movie, because who does appear in this more than makes up for it. Firstly, the character that I genuinely debated on whether or not to mention in my spoiler-free review, because the trailers, the final trailer that was released a few weeks before the movie was, actually did reveal that she was going to be in this movie, and that is Daphne Keane returning as X-23, aka Laura. Why did they spoil that she was going to be in this? I do get the reasoning behind it, because Daphne Keane actually did want to attend the premiere for this movie, because she did want to be a part of it and actually interact with Hugh and Ryan and everyone, and I get it. But even so, I mean, you don't need to show her in the trailer, just say that she's there for support. I absolutely love her in this role. I think she was a brilliant casting choice back when they cast her back in Logan, and I think that in this movie she does approach the character a little bit differently. She's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and not as impulsive as she was before, but she is great overall, and Daphne Keane is brilliant. Her performance is wonderful once again. Even though Laura and Wolverine are from two completely different universes, there is a really nice chemistry between them. I like the interactions between them. The scenes between the two of them together are wonderful. I love what it is that they do with these characters. And it was just nice seeing her interacting with Hugh Jackman again. There was a little bit of me that was hoping that she was going to have her own version of the Wolverine costume, the one that she has in the comics, maybe like an X-Force style version, where it's going to be like a grey and black version of the Wolverine suit, but oh well. But as I said, I genuinely love her in this role. I love that she got to revisit this character, and I do hope that she gets to come back in the future. The next big appearance is a cameo that was technically spoiled and revealed back in 2023, back when they announced the movie was going to be happening, and that is Jennifer Garner as Elektra. I know that Daredevil and Elektra are not everyone's favourite movies, but even so, it did make me happy getting to see her come back into this role. I've always liked her as Elektra, and she's still pretty kick-ass and got a really great presence to her whenever she's on screen. I have seen the videos that Jennifer Garner has posted out on social media of her training to get back into this role, and it's amazing seeing just how much time, effort and energy she put into getting back into shape. So it is a little bit of a shame actually seeing just how much of a role she actually does have in the overall movie, and how much of that training actually does pay off, because she doesn't really get that much to do, and basically she doesn't really even get like a proper fight scene at all. Like the other characters do get at least a good minute or so of just purely them doing their thing. She doesn't really get that, which I do think is a bit of a shame. I was even a little bit disappointed that even though Bullseye is actually in this movie, there is a variant of Bullseye that does appear in this, that I do think that she could have had maybe like a little bit of a rematch with him, just kind of like settle the score once and for all. But even so, I thought it was awesome seeing her again. And I quite like the new costume she's got in this movie, which kind of looks like a bit of a blur between the two costumes that she has previously worn as this character, mixed in with the colour scheme that her version of Daredevil had. I will admit, I was a little bit sad that Daredevil himself doesn't actually make an appearance in this movie, neither Ben Affleck or Charlie Cox. Like the Punisher, they do give him a shout out and they do mention that he's been killed off prior to the events of this film. And there's even a little gag that they throw in this about Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck's divorce. I'm amazed that they even joke about Hugh Jackman's divorce as well. I do remember hearing a lot of rumours that Ben Affleck could appear in this movie as Daredevil, but a lot of those rumours kind of got pushed to the side to the point where at one point in time there were some rumours that Ben Affleck could show up as Batman. I have absolutely no idea why or how, because it's owned by a completely different studio altogether. Warner Brothers and DC will never let that happen. The only way that I could see them actually getting away with it is if they did a very similar thing to what Invincible did and just have him be off screen and just have like the cape flapping on screen and just referring to him as a bat-like man. So yeah, I am a little bit disappointed that Ben Affleck doesn't appear in this movie as Daredevil. But quite recently, there has been some concept art from Deadpool and Wolverine that has been released online that does show that they were trying to get Daredevil involved. And that concept art also shows one other Marvel character that I would have loved to appear in this movie, and that is Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider. According to Nicolas Cage, Marvel Studios did actually get in touch with him about reprising his role as Ghost Rider. I don't know what happened there, whether they broke down or what, but there are rumours currently that he could appear in Secret Wars. In all honesty, it would have been awesome seeing him come back into these movies. I actually don't mind the Ghost Rider films. I know, again, a bit like Daredevil and Elektra, they're not everyone's favourite movies. I quite enjoy them in like a guilty pleasure kind of way. I quite like the story of the first movie, but I love the aesthetic and the look of the second film. So yeah, I am a little bit disappointed that neither Daredevil nor Ghost Rider make an appearance in this movie, but this next appearance really put a smile on my face. Wesley freaking Snipes makes his long overdue return as Blade. That was so cool to see, and he has lost none of his presence or swagger. And out of all of the characters that make appearances in this movie, he by far gets the most dramatic and just straight up badass introduction out of all of them. Even the music changes when he walks through the door. I mean, admittedly, it would have been a bigger surprise about him being in this movie if Wesley Snipes hadn't actually shared out an article that said that he was going to be in the movie. For a movie that was supposed to be on spoiler lockdown, there was a load of leaks about this. I absolutely loved seeing him come back into this role. I love Wesley Snipes as Blade. I love the new look that he's got, the new costume. I'm a bit split on his new hairstyle, but he does still have a lot of fight left in him, and he does get some pretty cool sequences as well. And I did like the little joke they came out with about there being only one Blade and there's only ever going to be one Blade, and then Deadpool turns to the camera with just like this little knowing look. I'm starting to believe Wesley Snipes at this point, to be honest. I mean, it's not like there was a TV series written by the same guy who made the films or anything. Anyway, and I did quite like that they do reference that Ryan Reynolds was in Blade Trinity as well, and they do make a little bit of a joke about Blade not really liking Deadpool, and he just goes, well, you never did. The more that I've heard about the making of Blade Trinity, I honestly don't know if Wesley Snipes got on with anyone. Anyway, I know that none of the Blade movies were under 20th Century Fox, they were all under Warner Brothers and New Line Cinemas, but honestly, it was just awesome seeing him in this movie. I absolutely loved it. And I've actually seen that Ryan Reynolds is actually pushing for Wesley Snipes to get a proper send-off movie as this version of Blade, and I am fully on board with it. But as it is, I thought this was a nice send-off. One appearance in this movie that both was and wasn't a surprise was Chris Evans making his return as the Human Torch. I was surprised that Chris Evans was in this movie, but I wasn't surprised that he was playing the Human Torch. And the movie does try and trick you into thinking that he is playing Captain America once again, but as soon as he showed up, I immediately went, I don't think he's playing Captain America. I mean, everything is kind of shouting that he is meant to be Captain America, to the point where I did start going, well, maybe he is supposed to be Captain America. And then they get to that moment where he starts saying, don't make me say it, and Deadpool's getting really excited. He's going to say it, he's going to say it. Avengers, flame on! As I said, as soon as he showed up, I immediately thought that he was playing the Human Torch and not Captain America. But it was so much fun, though, getting to see him come back as this character, and not only that, he actually gets one of the funniest post-credits scenes that we've seen in a while. It is definitely a shame that he does get killed off in the way that he does. I mean, For some reason, Marvel just seems to like killing off the Fantastic Four these days. I don't really know why. Even Fortnite's done it as well. It was pretty gruesome as well. But as Deadpool says, it was probably for budget reasons. But it was a fun cameo, and it was really nice getting to see him come back as the Human Torch. There was a little bit of me that wondered if Michael B. Jordan could show up at one point, and I thought that they could probably do a very similar thing where Deadpool is convinced that he's playing Killmonger, and then have him turn out to be the Human Torch, and then Deadpool goes, wait, is everybody here the Human Torch? I think that might have been too much. But honestly, it was awesome seeing Chris Evans coming back as Johnny Storm. I quite like him in that role. I don't mind those Fantastic Four movies overall. I do think that out of all the Fantastic Four movies that we have gotten over the years, those two are easily the best ones. So it did make me smile when he showed up. And I quite like the new suit that he's gone for in this as well. It's a little bit more simplified than the one that John Krasinski wore as Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness. And I do quite like that it's a little bit more streamlined as well. And it's not CGI either. I do think, and even though the rumours were false, it would have been really cool to have seen Michael Chiklis returning as the Thing as well. I absolutely loved him as Ben Grimm. I think he's the best version that we've ever gotten. Especially during that sequence where they all break into Cassandra Nova's lair and you get that shot of them all lined up next to each other. I do think that you are missing a little bit of Fantastic Four representation there. They may not have been as big as the X-Men movies, but in terms of the overall Fox lineup, they were an important part of it. So I think that's one missed opportunity. But the biggest surprise about this movie that I knew absolutely nothing about, that really caught me off guard, was Channing Tatum officially, finally playing Gambit. You're more than likely aware of it by now, but yes, once upon a time there was a lot of rumours and speculation that there was supposedly a Gambit movie being in development, until eventually we got an official announcement with Channing Tatum officially on board to play him. And unfortunately there was a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes, and eventually when 20th Century Fox was bought by Disney, that film, the Gambit movie, was completely shelved altogether, and Channing Tatum never got the chance to actually play him. So up until this movie, the only live action Gambit that we have ever gotten is the one from X-Men Origins. I have absolutely no idea whether that movie was going to be any good or not, but I was curious about what it was that they had planned for it. And if it was anything like that fan film that came out a few years ago, it might have actually been really good. But I was always quite curious about what it was that Channing Tatum would bring to the role. He wouldn't have really been my first choice to play Gambit, but I was quite curious to see what direction he would take with it. But it honestly was a huge surprise actually seeing him stepping out of that doorway in the full comic accurate costume with the cards and everything. I did not know that he was in this whatsoever. That was the biggest surprise for me, and it got a proper gasp from me. And then what it is that they do with Gambit's accent as well, because like, Gambit's accent is quite a hard one to get right. I think the one that they've done in the 97 series is absolutely perfect for the character. Channing Tatum's one, I know that it is played up more for laughs, and a lot of people have criticised his accent and said, oh, he can't do the accent whatsoever. So I don't know if he can or can't, to be honest, because they have openly said that they wanted him to really play into the fact that people can't really understand everything that he's saying, and they said they really wanted to lean on the more comedic side of it so that Deadpool can make some jokes about it, about him potentially being dialect coached by the Minions. So I do think that the accent itself would have been better if it was played more seriously. But in all honesty, how they've brought him to life in this movie, the costume is absolutely perfect. How they've captured his power set is absolutely perfect. I absolutely loved it. And Gambit does get a few moments to show off what it is that he can do, and Channing Tatum looks like he is having an absolute blast. He looks like he is having the time of his life making this. As I said, I personally don't think that he's the best person to play Gambit, but I am genuinely happy that Channing Tatum got the chance to finally play him. With all of the characters that appear in this movie and all the little references and callbacks to earlier movies, this does feel like a really lovely closing chapter to the Fox era of Marvel. It feels like a love letter and tribute in the same way that No Way Home was for Spider-Man. And that's really showcased during the closing credits, where you've actually got a little montage of all the different Fox movies that were getting in development. And there's little interviews with Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart and Ryan Reynolds. And it's genuinely really lovely and touching, and it actually kind of brought a tear to my eye. Honestly, I am really happy with how it is that the characters are handled in this movie. I do think that the cameos are handled really well. I love that they've brought so many people back into this, and I'm glad that they aren't just used as cannon fodder in the same way that the Illuminati were in Multiverse of Madness. But as I said, I do think that everyone was used well in this movie, and I do think that everyone does get a really nice and really fitting send-off. Now, in terms of this movie's importance to the overall MCU, prior to this movie's release, Kevin Feige, who's the producer behind all of these movies, has said that this movie is a very important part of the multiverse saga, And this film does set up a lot of very important aspects and a lot of important scenarios and ideas that are going to factor into the future of the MCU and ultimately in Secret Wars. The biggest of which being this introduction of something called anchor beings, which are basically like these characters that are so important to their particular timeline that if they die, their timeline starts to wither and fade, and in this case, it was Logan from the movie Logan. And that's essentially why this entire story starts off in the first place. Logan has died, the anchor being of Deadpool's universe has gone, even though the timeline doesn't add up whatsoever. And essentially, they want Deadpool to basically be a part of the MCU. They want to pluck him out of his universe and use him for some sort of future reason. And that's essentially what sets the entire story in motion, with Deadpool wanting to get another Wolverine to basically just replace the one that they lost in Logan. I do think that it is an interesting idea. I do think that it is an interesting concept to introduce into this, and I do think that it does add a little bit of weight to what could potentially happen in Secret Wars, because there is a lot of rumours swirling around that potentially Iron Man could be the anchor being of the 616 universe, which does make the most sense. Kevin Feige is playing quite coy about that. He has been asked that directly, and he has just basically said, I'm really happy that you're asking that. It's going to end up being Spider-Man at this point. But I am curious to see how it is that this is going to tie into future installments of the MCU and how it is going to connect together with Doomsday and Secret Wars, especially how it is that Deadpool, Wolverine, X-23, potentially the other characters as well, because we don't know whether they got saved or not. There is a deleted scene that Gambit actually did get out of the void, so I don't know how it is that those characters are going to factor into future installments, so I am curious to see how that plays out. I suppose that is my overall thought process when it comes to the overall future of the MCU as well at this point, because there is a lot of projects on the way. There's a lot of things that I'm not really too excited about. I mean, Daredevil Born Again, I'm really looking forward to. There's a few other projects like Fantastic Four, I'm really looking forward to. Spider-Man 4, obviously Doomsday and Secret Wars, I'm curious to see how they play out. But as I said in my spoiler-free video, I don't think that this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, is the saviour of Marvel Studios. I do think that there is still a lot of stuff that they do need to kind of iron out and plan ahead for. Case in point, the Blade movie just seems to be stuck in limbo. Armor Wars doesn't seem to be moving forwards at all. They've just blatantly decided to scrap the entire concept of Kang being the overall villain, and the Kang dynasty is no longer happening, so I don't really understand what's going on now, because it does feel like a lot of the things that they have set up in the past, like Quantumania, feels absolutely pointless now. And then with the announcement that not only are the Russo brothers coming back to direct both Doomsday and Secret Wars, we are also officially seeing the return of Robert Downey Jr., not as Iron Man, but this time as Doctor Doom. And I am really split on that overall, because yeah, on the one hand, it is a really exciting idea and it is a really exciting prospect for what it is that they could bring to Doomsday and Secret Wars, because I love the Russo brothers, absolutely. And Robert Downey Jr. coming back, that is huge news. But at the same time, to me, it does feel a little bit desperate, because like Doctor Doom, to me, he is on the same level as Thanos. He is a character that you need to build up to across a long stretch of time, and they're just throwing him in at last minute. So I don't really know how to feel about it overall. On the one hand, yeah, I am quite excited about it, but on the other hand, I do feel like this is a desperate move. So we'll see what happens. Well, I think that is pretty much everything I want to say for this video. So if you have watched this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and be sure to hit that notification button. If you have seen Deadpool and Wolverine, let me know down in the comments what you think about it. As this is a spoiler-filled video, go nuts down there. Let me know any thoughts that you have on this movie whatsoever. And let me know if you have any theories or ideas about the future of the MCU as well. Plus, if you have any suggestions for any future Rewind reviews you would like to see me do, let me know down below. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. See you guys.